Hi guys, another week, another conversation about what is going on in Africa. Now I have one very important question to ask today. Is the Ruto's government in Kenya trying to oversee a regime change operation in Sudan? It looks like that to me. Anyway, I'm going to share my thoughts with you about something that is taking shape in Sudan with the stamp of William Ruto of Kenya. After that, we are moving over to what is going on in Africa as usual. Now, this past week, a few days ago, reports came out that United States under Donald Trump and Israel are trying to relocate the Palestinians from Gaza into different countries in Africa, specifically Sudan, Somalia, and Somaliland. Remember, I've discussed this with you before. Well, I'm going to add more thoughts that have come to me after this news story came out, and then we'll wrap up today's conversation with Sudan again. Yes, this time South Sudan. So in South Sudan, you probably heard there is an ongoing conflict between the president and the vice president, and is threatening to throw the country once again into a civil war. I want to share my opinion with you about what is going on in South Sudan, because each time I look at the conflicts in Sudan and South Sudan, I remember what happened in 2011 when South Sudan gained its independence. So we'll discuss that also in this episode of the Amanda Show. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Amanda Kalono, and on the Amanda Show, we discuss geopolitics from an African perspective. That is, we look at happenings in the world today and how it affects we in Africa. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with everyone so that we can reach more people across the continent and across the world. And if you want to support the work that I'm doing here, feel free to use the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description, and it's also on the screen. Let's jump into the stories. So guys, something is brewing in Sudan, and it seems like, to me, from where I'm looking, it seems like the government of Kenya, that is William Ruto, is trying to support a regime change operation in Sudan. So why do I say that? Before now, I had seen that the leadership of the RSF, that is the part of the warring party, there's a war going on in Sudan between the government of Sudan and the RSF. So the leadership of the RSF was in Kenya, and they visited some government officials in Kenya. I believe they were in the parliament or something. Then after that, I began to see news stories pop up that the RSF is looking to create a parallel government, right? And they're creating a parallel government, more like government in diaspora, like government in something very funny like that. I'll find the exact story and I'll put it on the screen. Anyway, and this is going to take place in Kenya. Now, when the leadership of the RSF visited Kenya, initially I just looked at it that, okay, maybe Ruto's government is trying to mediate peace between Sudan, the government of Sudan and the RSF. So right now he's maybe having the first talks with the RSF. Then after that, we'll have talks with the government of Sudan. But once that news story came out, the government of Sudan made a strong statement against that meeting. So I'm like, oh, okay, let's see how this unfolds. And this is how it unfolds. Now, I'm bringing this up because in Africa, we've had one of the most painful stories, right, in Africa, in the world. We've experienced it in Africa. So you do not expect that an African government that knows what it's like to see war. Remember that Kenya, they went to war against the British, right? And that was what part of the Mau Mau massacre. So a government in Africa that knows what it means like to fight for sovereignty, that knows what it means like to experience opposition, you would expect that they will be more empathic to other African countries that are going through war. So you don't expect them to lend a hand to instigate chaos in Kenya. Now, when I was researching about this, I listened to a broadcast, right, by Breakthrough News. And now the broadcast by Breakthrough News had someone from Kenya. I think he's a spokesperson or something. I don't remember his official designation, but of the Communist Party and Marxism Party, something like that in Kenya. And he made a very interesting statement that I don't know how such a thing had skipped me. So he said that, this guest on Breakthrough News, he said that this relationship now between the RSF and Kenya, that's Ruto's government, was instigated and made possible by the UAE. He also mentioned that when Ruto was going to Washington when Biden was in office, and Ruto visited Washington, that he shared the same plane with the leadership of the RSF. Plane made possible by whom? The United Arab Emirates. Is it that the government of Kenya is not seeing what is going on in Kenya? Is not in Sudan. Is not seeing the genocide that is going on in Sudan, made possible by the RSF and the UAE that is funding the RSF. So clearly the UAE, I don't know what it is, but the UAE clearly has an agenda in Sudan. Very clearly, because you're not going to pump in so much money and so much weapons into a country you have no interest in. The UAE, United Arab Emirates, clearly has an agenda in Sudan. And so far, how this war is playing out now is not in the benefit of Sudan, neither is it in the benefit of the people of Sudan. So maybe we can say that the fire that is burning in Sudan is only benefiting outsiders. So now ask me, why is it that Ruto's government in Kenya is supporting the outsiders that are setting Sudan on fire? Let us all remember that regardless of what happens right now, because right now things are going a certain way and people are thinking it's always going to be like this. But when we do things, let's always keep in mind the future, how things will pan out tomorrow. And as it stands now, Ruto's government is taking a position that is not going to benefit Kenya, that the future will not look at this administration, won't look at it well. That gentleman who also spoke to on Breakthrough News made mention of something that I wasn't even aware of. He said that Kenya has not had a good history of supporting Africa's cause. That Kenya supported apartheid government in South Africa. That was what he said, but I'm yet to verify that. So my question is, if the RSF is born in Sudan with the help of the United Arab Emirates, why is Kenya playing a role? Why is William Ruto allowing Kenya to be a party to the destruction of Sudan? Doesn't it mean anything? More recently, there's been advancement in favor of the Sudanese government on the battlefront. So the Sudanese government, they have retaken, on the military front, they've retaken several important strongholds. They've also taken several cities. So things are going in the favor of the Sudanese government. Maybe that's why these people are panicking now. The UAE is panicking because the RSF they've been supporting, hoping that the RSF will win in the battlefront. And after winning in the battlefront, the RSF will come into power. Then the UAE can have its field day in Sudan. Clearly, it's not going on. I don't know how things will turn out tomorrow, but for now, it's not going on like that. For now, it's in the favor of the Sudanese government. So maybe that's why they're panicking like this. Even more recently, the Sudanese government has filed a case in the ICC against the United Arab Emirates. Now, we may say, oh, the ICC will not take it seriously. After all, the UAE is an ally of the United States. The United States is always going to pick the UAE over Sudan anytime, any day. So we can look at it like that. Do you understand? Because at the end of the day, the UAE these Gulf monarchies are really important for the United States because of Israel in the Middle East. So the United States is always going to choose these Gulf monarchs like the UAE and Qatar and the rest of them. Is always going to choose them over an African country like Sudan. So if the UAE is pushing its interest in Sudan, the most important question to ask is, what is the interest of Africa in Sudan? The interest of Africa in Sudan is peace. The interest of Africa in Sudan is stability. The interest of Africa in Sudan is economic progress. Not all this stupid geopolitics game that when an outsider wants to have a strong foothold in an African country for its own interest, it can always find another African country willing to facilitate its vision in Africa. Not this kind of nonsense. If Sudan is on fire, Sudan is on fire for the whole of Africa. Because now you think about it, the refugees that are going to be pouring out of Sudan into other African countries, which is also going to be a heavy economic burden for the host governments. And most of these African countries, collectively, like the rest of the world, are dealing with economic issues like inflation. So it is in Africa's interest to ensure that there is peace in Sudan. there is stability in Sudan, not to see a situation whereby a country like Kenya is playing host to allegedly going to play host to a parallel government of Sudan with which authority, with which mandate. Which mandate is it going to use to govern the Sudanese if it's not just going to serve as a slush fund for external players? Okay, let's paint a picture. The RSF sets up itself as the legitimate government of Sudan, and they do that in Kenya or somewhere. On which ground? With which mandate? Who is going to recognize it as the legitimate government of Sudan? How is it going to work for the benefit of the Sudanese if it's not going to be working for the benefit of outsiders in Sudan? Do you know, each time I see stories like this about Ruto and Kenya, I keep remembering when Ruto was campaigning for the presidency. He said all the right things. Ruto just knew what to say to get our attention. Well, this is what has happened, and it's very sad. It's very sad that in 2025, we still have leaders who are willing to jeopardize their respective countries and their neighbors and the continent at large in favor of outsiders. Has Africa not seen enough already? In our history of 500 plus years, right, with those who exploited Africa, have we not seen enough already? Well, for William Ruto, clearly not. We have not seen enough, and it wants to be another act in a very, very terrible screenplay. So let me know what you think about this development in Kenya/Sudan in the comment section below. What do you think also about the RSF setting up a parallel government? I don't know how that is going to pan out, but share your thoughts with me in the comment section below. As usual, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with your family and your friends so that we can amplify Africa's voice on a global scale. And if you want to support the work that I'm doing here, feel free to use the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description, and it's also on the screen. Thank you. Okay, I mentioned to you some time ago that there was rumors, and I saw this in the Israeli media, that there was rumors that Netanyahu was looking to expel the Gazans, the Palestinians from Gaza, was looking to expel them from Gaza and dump them in Africa. And I discussed that back then. That was under the Biden administration. Now I'm seeing news, a recent one just came up now, that Donald Trump and the United States and Netanyahu and Israel are looking to expel the Palestinians from Gaza and bring them into Africa. Specifically, 3 countries were mentioned. Sudan, well, you can say 2 depending, because one of them is not internationally recognized, but Sudan, Somalia, and Somaliland. Sudan has refused this, and they said that they are not going to bring the Gazans into their, or the Palestinians in Gaza into their country. Because if you think about it, Sudan is already at war. So why would you want to add more problems to the Sudanese situation? So Sudan has refused this and said they are not going to open their country for such an ethnic cleansing. But then Somalia and Somaliland have said that they're not aware of this, that this is, they denied knowledge about this. So one thing I want to mention about this is I just want to remind you that when we spoke about this the last time, right, the country or the region that seemed more feasible for me was Somaliland. Somaliland because, number one, it's looking for international recognition. And if Donald Trump recognizes Somaliland as a country, that gives it clout on international level. Apart from that, also Somaliland, Israel is setting up a military base allegedly setting up a military base in Somaliland, funded in part or in whole by the United Arab Emirates, under the guise that they want to be able to have a front against the Houthis in Yemen. Right? So this is the situation where I say if any country might accept this kind of thing, it might be Somaliland. And even under the Biden administration, there's been several visits of United States military officials or officials in general, visits to Somaliland and even Somalia. So the louder this thing gets, the more that I believe that there is a plan to ethnic cleanse Gaza, to ethnically cleanse Gaza, remove the Palestinians from their ancestral home and bring them into Africa. This is why you see that these people, when people say, I've said this in several times on this show, that these loudest noisemakers about, human rights, human rights, human rights, they are the biggest abusers of human rights. They are. Because if human rights meant anything, and if the United Nations Charter means anything, ethnic cleansing is a crime. In fact, it was because of this United Nations that the state of Israel was set up. These United Nations. But here we are. Everybody's behaving, United States and Israel, under Trump and Netanyahu, they're behaving anyhow. No regard for international law, because international law didn't mean anything to begin with. After, when they talk, you don't hear them say, the Americans and the Europeans, you don't hear them say international law. What did they say? The rules-based order. Rules-based order is that I can do anything I want to do. And you just, rules for you and not for me. That's what it is. That's what it is. And think about these African countries that they want to dump the Palestinians in. Sudan is at war. The war broke out in 2023. April of this year is going to make it 2 years of war. 2 years of war that has led to some really despicable war crimes committed by the RSF. We've seen massive sexual assaults. We've seen indiscriminate killing of civilians. We've seen destruction of farms, everything. That even the Sudanese, the ethnic Sudanese, the people from the country are running into neighboring countries for their safety, and they want to bring the Palestinians from Gaza and dump them in Sudan. Because you don't have regard for human life. What do you call it? Human rights mean nothing to you. Tell me which other country on the planet will do such a thing and get away with it. Tell me, what other country on the planet, like other than United States and Israel, would do such a despicable thing and even have the audacity to even plan it? Egypt sent a plan for Gaza after the war, right? And the Arab states sent to, and the United States refused it. So if the one that Egypt and the Arab states sent is not good enough, to take the Palestinians away from Gaza and dump them like trash in another country, is that a good plan? Is that a better plan? Because they've said it several times and they've shown it a video. They want to turn Gaza to the real estate projects. They want, after Donald Trump's son-in-law is a real estate developer. He's into real estate and he has projects in Israel. He has projects in Israel and even the occupied West Bank. So maybe what they did in the West Bank, they also want to do that in Gaza. Human rights does not mean anything. It does not mean anything. Look at Somalia that they want to send the Palestinians to. Somalia is dealing with terrorism. The country is always, every day you're hearing some really terrible stories coming out of Somalia with terrorism. Funded by who? Allegedly the USAID. After all, when Netanyahu wrote his book, I believe his 1995 book he wrote, right? And he spoke about countries that they need to overthrow. United States needs to overthrow in a space of, they said it was going to be in a space of 5 years. The countries that they mentioned, Sudan is part of it. Somalia is part of it. Yes. They successfully destroyed Sudan. They successfully destroyed Somalia, which led to the birth of Somaliland. They did it. Yet the countries that you set on fire with your regime change operation, your allegedly funding terrorism, the countries you set on fire are the same countries you now want to come and dump the Palestinians in. See, Africa, let me tell you something here. The most important thing for us is to be militarily strong militarily and economically. I'm telling you, once you're strong militarily and economically, many of this nonsense we're not going to see. We need, even if it's just a handful of African countries, right, that are so rich and they are so militarily strong that they can, and they have the interest of Africa at heart, that can speak for the whole continent. I'm telling you, it's existential that we have such a thing. If not, this nonsense is, we'll keep seeing it. After that, I told you, each time I talk about things like this, I tell you, will you see them do this in Russia? They dare not now. Since that they've been trying to use Ukraine to weaken Russia, and it has failed. After when they do, I think that was 2023. Yeah, it was 2023 when they were saying that, they've defeated Russia and Ukraine. And a journalist asked Putin, and Putin's response was very interesting. Putin said, they've defeated us. Let them come to Moscow and have tea. Because they hadn't. Okay, look at now, they are trying to run around for ceasefire because Ukraine has lost. Even I don't want to go into that conversation, because that conversation, each time I think about what Zelensky did, yes, you can say, oh, United States did it, NATO did it, quite all right. But Zelensky, to me, he is the most responsible for the destruction of his country. Because if outsiders want to destroy your country, you either say yes or you say no. But he followed them and he played along, and look what happened to Ukraine. Right? Look what they're trying to do. I keep saying they can't do this kind of thing in China because China is strong. China is strong. But Africa, we just have weak states. Economically weak, militarily weak, everything weak, politically weak, nothing. That is why they will keep using us they keep using us to have a field day. That is it. So let me know what you think about, for it to come out again, this is a serious plan in the Trump White House to dump the Palestinians from Gaza into Africa. So let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Share your thoughts with me, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and hit that share button so that we can spread this word across the world, so that Africa's voice can be heard on a global scale. And if you want to support the work that I'm doing here, the Buy Me a Coffee link is in the description, and it's also on the screen. Thank you. It seems to me that this week is the week of Sudan, because if we are not discussing Sudan itself, we are discussing South Sudan. So something intensified. The rivalry, or should I say the friction between the president and the vice president in South Sudan has intensified, leading to people speculating that are we about to see a second civil war in South Sudan? Just to show you how serious the situation is in South Sudan, Uganda has deployed military contingents to the country, and then the spokesperson for the military said that they are not sending peacekeeping force. So that now I'm adding this point, so that we know that the force that Uganda has sent into South Sudan is a force that is ready to take on war. So what do I have to say about this? The case of Sudan is very painful for me, because Sudan was a country that was intentionally destroyed by outsiders. Intentionally. Because some people somewhere thought that the existence of Sudan was a threat to their project in some other part of the world. I do not want to call names right now because of the platform we are using. Some people felt that, and they worked because they had military might, they had economic might, and they worked to the detriment of Sudan with the help of people within the continent. So Sudan was the largest country in Africa before the civil war was brewing and brewing, pushed by outsiders. Don't forget, pushed by outsiders. The civil war was brewing and brewing and brewing. There was factions, issues, blah, blah, blah. And finally led to the point where South Sudan gained independence and broke away in 2011. Remember, it's the same 2011 when Gaddafi fell. Remember. So anyway, South Sudan broke away and became its country. Even after it broke away and it became its own country, there was still chaos and fighting in South Sudan. They were still fighting up and down. There was issues all over the place. And this has persisted even till now, that people are saying, maybe South Sudan is going to see another civil war. There are two things I want to say about this. First of all, I want to clearly say that the most important thing to all parties involved, the most important thing we should look out for in South Sudan is peace. Because peace is the only thing that can help. Anything war and destruction does not benefit Africa. We have seen it in Sudan. We have seen it in Libya. We have seen it all over. In fact, the African story, right, since outsiders began to get involved in our politics, and even after so-called independence, has been chaos and fighting. Yeah, there's been good things, don't get me wrong, but we've had so much fighting and so much rivalry that we should already know that this is not in the interest of anybody. But having said that, and I hope that peace comes quickly to South Sudan before this whole thing escalates. But having said that, I want to talk about this South Sudan issue, keeping in mind where we are in Africa today. Back then, when it was one country, Sudan, right? A faction probably felt like, oh, this country is bad. It would be better for us to gain independence. The secession group, It would be better for us to gain independence. If we gain independence, all our troubles will disappear. If we gain independence, all our issues will disappear. Oh, the only problem that we as maybe as an ethnic group, as a religious, or maybe united by religion, whatever, the only reason that we are not moving and we are not as prosperous as we're supposed to be is because of so and so people in this other part of Sudan, blah blah blah. And then that idea, that ideology, that dream was sold to these people, and they thought that the peace that can never come to South Sudan will only come until they gain independence, and they broke the country apart. After the balkanization of the country, we are still having the same issues today. I said that to say this. Across Africa, we have many, whether it's ethnic groups or maybe along religious lines, that I say the reason that we are not progressing is because of this whole country. The reason that we're not progressing is because of so and so. That the only way that we as an ethnic group can progress is for us to gain independence and break away from this country. Look at Sudan. Look at South Sudan. That thing is a pipe dream. In a world of this kind of great power politics we play in geopolitics, right? There's strength in numbers. We are stronger, and that's why this whole Pan-Africanism idea is very appealing to me, because the only fake countries created by the Europeans, by the way, with fake European borders, but at all these countries we are better working together to advance our interest than working apart. South Sudan should be a lesson to all these people who are saying, let us break Africa further so we can have our own group. If the South Sudanese did not get the so-called peace they thought they were going to get, did not get the so-called economic advancement they thought they were going to get, don't think your story is going to be different. Because no, you're not special. You are not special. I'm saying this for every African ethnic group who is clamoring for breaking away from the bigger country. We now, I'm of the opinion that let's even ignore these borders and work together collectively as Africans. That way we can advance. Yeah, I'm not saying we should collapse like completely. We should not have different presidents in different countries and have only one African president. No, I'm not saying that. Because different African countries are in different levels of development, even culturally, a lot of things have changed, right? Even back then, even before the Europeans came, it's not as if culturally we're all similar across cultures. No, we've never been, right? But what I am saying is, while we still have our respective governments, we should work with one Africa in mind. We should work with one Africa in mind. I had a conversation with Ademola, and we discussed Ogbeni Ademola. We discussed Pan-Africanism. He's a political commentator. He's a journalist. Very, very, very important conversation on Pan-Africanism that I want you to listen to. The video is already up on the YouTube channel, so you can find it. But what I'm saying now is that it is better for us to think of whole than, because the more you break yourself and say, okay, now my ethnic group, we are going to create this country for ourselves so that this rubbish other country that is not making us progress, they can go. The more you break yourself, the weaker you become. The smaller you are, the more you are easy to pick up from the geopolitical chessboard. You're going to be very, very easy. Why do you think that one of the things that they are planning for Russia, but thank God they don't have it, and I hope they never have it, but one of the things they are planning for Russia is, in the event of they defeat Russia militarily, they want to break Russia into 5 different countries. The balkanization of Russia, because the smaller you are, the easier it is to deal with you. The easier it is. In fact, the smaller you are, the weaker you are, you're inconsequential. But once you are together and you are strong, you're a threat. But yet, when you are strong, that is where your strength is. When you're together as a whole, that is where your power is. I'm saying this because they sold South Sudan a pipe dream. They are still selling several other ethnic groups across Africa a pipe dream. Don't think that if you create your own small African country, you have a beautiful life. No, look at our history in Africa. That is, you may see some things in other parts of the world, all right. But in Africa, Africa's geopolitical chessboard or geopolitical game and Africa's geopolitical role in the mind of some people is different from that of some other countries in, say, in Asia or in Latin America or somewhere else. So that is what I want to say about this occurrence in South Sudan. In South Sudan should serve as a reminder for we in Africa that we are better together, stronger. Instead of breaking apart more and more to become tiny countries, it is better for us to stay together and band together to become a strong force on a global scale. That is when Africa's interest will ever be actualized. So I hope that whatever it is that is going on in South Sudan, peace comes to South Sudan and it's resolved quickly before this whole thing escalates, because we cannot be having a war in Sudan and come to have another war in South Sudan. So let me know what you think about this occurrence in South Sudan and even Uganda deploying troops into the country. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with your family and your friends so that we can amplify Africa's voice on a global scale. And if you want to support the work that I'm doing here, the Buy Me a Coffee link is in the description and it's also on the screen. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode of The Amanda Show. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.